I have spent 30 years building a life on precision. In compliance, you learn early that the details matter more than anything else. A misplaced decimal, a word used carelessly, a signature on the wrong line. These are the things that bring entire structures down. I built my career on catching what other people missed, on reading between lines, on knowing when something did not add up even before I could prove why. So when my wife of 25 years started feeling like a document I could no longer fully read, I noticed. I noticed before I wanted to, before I was ready to accept what the evidence was beginning to suggest. Her name is Serena. We met when I was 26 and she was 24 at a conference in Atlanta that neither of us had particularly wanted to attend. She was standing by the coffee station looking bored and beautiful, and I walked over and said something that made her laugh. 3 years later, we were married. 2 sons, 1 house, 25 years. A life built carefully and deliberately, the way I built everything. I had been planning our anniversary for months. 25 years deserved something significant. I booked a private catering company for the party. I arranged for our closest friends to be there. And 6 weeks before the date, I commissioned a custom diamond necklace from a jeweler downtown. A piece designed specifically for Serena, with a small inscription on the back that read the same words I had said to her on our wedding day. I was downtown picking up that necklace when I saw them. I had finished at the jeweler and was walking back to my car, the small velvet box sitting in my jacket pocket, when I looked across the street and saw Serena coming out of the Grand Meridian Hotel. She was laughing. Her hand was on the arm of the man beside her. The man was Bill. I stood completely still on that pavement. Bill had been my close friend for 11 years. We met through a mutual colleague and had stayed close. Dinners, football games, the kind of easy friendship that does not require much maintenance but feels solid when you need it. He was also our realtor, the man who had helped us sell our previous home and buy the one we currently lived in. Serena and Bill knew each other well. They had always gotten along easily. I had never once considered that their ease with each other was anything other than the natural warmth of people who shared a mutual person they both cared about. I watched them part ways on the pavement. Serena kissed him on the cheek, the kind of kiss that lasted a fraction of a second too long. Then she turned and walked in the opposite direction, pulling out her phone, probably to call me and tell me she was at her sister's, or running errands, or doing any one of the things she had recently started saying she was doing on afternoons when she was not where I thought she was. I walked back to my car. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time. The velvet box was still in my pocket. Here is the thing about working in compliance for 30 years. When you discover an irregularity, you do not react immediately. You do not confront. You do not make noise. You gather evidence first. You build an airtight case. You make absolutely certain that what you think you are seeing is exactly what you are seeing. And then, only then, you act. I drove home. I said nothing. Over the following days, I paid closer attention to what I had already been dimly aware of for months. The growing distance between Serena and me, the way conversations had become surface level, the increased frequency of her unexplained absences, the way she had started sleeping on her side of the bed with her back to me, as if there was a wall between us that only she could see. I had been attributing it to the natural quietness that sometimes settles into a long marriage. I had told myself it was temporary. I stopped telling myself that. 2 weeks after seeing them outside the hotel, I went to a specialist electronics supplier and purchased 3 voice-activated audio recording devices, small, discreet, professionally made. I installed one in the living room, one in the kitchen, and one in our bedroom. I placed a 4th in Serena's handbag and a 5th in the boot of her car, tucked beneath the lining where she would never think to look. Then I waited. I did not have to wait long. Within 10 days, the recordings had given me everything I needed and considerably more than I wanted. Conversations in our own kitchen, a phone call in her car that lasted 40 minutes, the specific language of 2 people who had been intimate for long enough to have developed their own private references. The affair had been going on for 14 months. 14 months. For 14 months, I had been living inside a life that was quietly being dismantled from within, and I had not known. The man who built his career on catching what others missed had missed this entirely. I sat in my study one evening with my headphones in, listening to the recordings, and felt something shift permanently inside me. Not dramatically, not with tears or shouting, but with the quiet finality of a door closing on something that would never be opened again. I made my decisions calmly and methodically over the following weeks. First, I contacted my attorney. I had the divorce papers drawn up quietly, carefully, with provisions I had thought through thoroughly. Serena's name was not mentioned to the attorney beyond what was legally necessary. Second, I began the process of formally retiring from my position as VP of Compliance, something I had been considering for some time, and which now felt not just appealing, but necessary. A clean break on every front. Third, I continued planning the anniversary party exactly as I had been planning it, with one small but significant addition to the guest list. I invited Bill and his wife Sally. I called Bill myself. I told him I had some exciting news about a business opportunity and wanted to share it with him the morning after the party over breakfast. He said he would be delighted. His voice on the phone was warm and easy, and completely unburdened by guilt. And I noted this with the detached professionalism of a man who has spent 3 decades cataloging evidence of human wrongdoing. The anniversary party was on a Saturday evening. The caterers arrived at 4. Serena wore a blue dress and looked beautiful, and moved through the room with the effortless grace that had made me fall in love with her 26 years ago. Our friends were there, people who had known us for decades, people who toasted to us and said things about endurance and love and what a remarkable couple we were. Before the guests arrived, in the quiet of our bedroom, I gave Serena the necklace. She opened the velvet box and her eyes went wide. She touched the diamonds with one finger and looked up at me and said it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. I fastened it around her neck. I read her the inscription. She pressed her hand to her chest, and her eyes filled with tears, and she told me she loved me. I told her I loved her too. I meant it, in the way that you can still mean something, even after it has been irreparably broken. Love does not always expire cleanly at the moment of betrayal. Sometimes it lingers like light after a source has been extinguished, present and warm for a little while longer before it finally fades. I loved Serena that evening, in the way of 25 years of accumulated mornings and quiet evenings and shared losses and private jokes, and 2 sons raised together into men. I loved all of that. It was the woman standing in front of me that I was no longer certain I knew at all. The party was a success by every measure. We danced once, Serena and I, to the song from our wedding, and people gathered around us and smiled, and she put her head on my shoulder and I held her and thought, this is the last time. I let myself feel that fully, just for the duration of that song, and then I folded it away and continued being the perfect host for the remainder of the evening. Sunday morning, 8:30. Bill and Sally arrived at our front door looking relaxed. Bill in a casual shirt, Sally with a bottle of orange juice she had brought as a gesture. I welcomed them warmly. Serena came downstairs and I watched the almost imperceptible flicker that crossed her face when she saw Bill before she rearranged it into a smile. I noted it the way I had been noting everything for weeks. I settled everyone in the living room. Coffee was already made. The morning light was coming through the windows in long golden strips across the floor. Everything was calm and pleasant and entirely ordinary. I said I had something I wanted to share. I took out my phone. I placed it on the coffee table. I pressed play. The recording was 90 seconds long. I had chosen it deliberately. Explicit enough to be unambiguous. Specific enough that no one in that room could mistake what they were hearing or who was speaking. Bill's voice and Serena's voice, clear and undeniable, in our kitchen, on a Thursday afternoon 4 weeks earlier while I had been at work. The room went completely silent. Sally's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Then she stood up, crossed the room in 4 steps, and slapped Bill across the face with enough force that the sound of it landed like a crack in the quiet morning air. What followed from her mouth was the particular eloquence of a woman who had been made a fool of and was no longer interested in composure. She told him, among other things, that she had always known something was wrong, that he was a pathetic coward, and that he had apparently also been deeply inadequate in ways that made the betrayal all the more insulting. When she was done, I handed her a sealed envelope containing copies of the relevant audio files. I told her quietly that she was going to need them. She looked at me for a long moment with something that might have been gratitude mixed with devastation, and then she walked to the front door, turned back to look at Bill one final time, with an expression of absolute contempt, and left. I asked Bill to follow her. He tried to speak. I held up one hand, and he stopped. There was nothing he could say inside, 90 seconds of recorded audio that would require a response from me. He was not worth my anger, and he was certainly not worth my words. He stood up, straightened his shirt with a strange, automatic dignity, and walked out of my house. I closed the door behind him. Then I turned to Serena. She was sitting exactly where she had been sitting, both hands folded in her lap, her face very still. The diamond necklace was at her throat. She looked up at me, and I could see in her eyes that she was calculating, assessing, measuring, trying to determine what posture to take. I recognized the behavior because I had spent 30 years watching people do exactly that when they realized the evidence against them was conclusive. I placed the divorce papers on the coffee table in front of her. I told her the terms clearly and without emotion. If she accepted the divorce as written, uncontested, clean, completed within 60 days, she could keep the house and a financial settlement that was more than fair given the circumstances. Our sons would never know the details. The recordings would remain private. She could walk away with her dignity and her relationship with her children intact. If she chose to fight it, I would send a detailed letter to both our sons explaining precisely what I had discovered and how. I would present the full evidence in court. I would pursue the case to its conclusion regardless of cost or duration. Everything, the house, the settlement, the narrative she preferred, would be decided by a judge rather than between us in a living room on a quiet Sunday morning. She started to cry. She said my name. She said she was sorry. She said it had been a mistake, that it meant nothing, that she still loved me, that 25 years meant everything to her. She reached for my hand. I stepped back, not unkindly, but clearly. I told her I believed that she was sorry. I told her I did not doubt that some part of what we had built together had been real and had mattered to her. And then I told her that none of that changed anything, because sorry was not a document I could work with, and regret was not something I had any use for at this particular point in the proceedings. I went upstairs. My bags were already packed. I had done it 3 days earlier while she was out. 2 large cases and a carry-on. Everything I needed and nothing I didn't. I came back downstairs. Serena was still on the sofa. I walked through the living room and out the front door. I heard her follow me outside. I put my bags in the boot of my car without rushing. When I turned around, she was standing in the driveway in her morning clothes with tears running down her face, the diamond necklace still catching the light. And she looked at me the way a person looks when they have only just understood the full weight of what they have lost. I looked at her for a moment. 25 years. 2 sons. 1 house. A life built carefully and deliberately. Then I got in my car. I had a cruise to catch. 7 days, Miami to the Caribbean and back. A trip I had originally booked for our anniversary, which I had quietly transferred into a single occupancy booking 3 weeks earlier. I had never been on a cruise alone. I did not know what it would feel like to stand on a deck in the middle of open water with nothing required of me and nowhere particular to be. I was looking forward to finding out. Some men fall apart when everything ends. Some men rage. Some men beg. I have never been any of those kinds of men. I am the kind of man who reads the evidence carefully, prepares his case thoroughly, and when the time comes, acts. I acted. The rest, as they say, is mine to figure out. And for the first time in a very long time, I found I did not mind that at all.